unveiling his much anticipated manifesto this afternoon, and we'll be crossing over to my colleagues who are on standby for us on the ground. Samuel Mbura and Samuel Kojo-Brace are going to be anchoring for us in Takoradi live tonight. You really want to stay with us here on your election headquarters. It has been long in coming, but the moment is here where the NPP will be laying forth its promises, but also its key policy proposals for 2025 and beyond if they win the elections. And that is what it comes down to. This is what they believe to be their social contract. It will dictate what they do if they win government. And we're placing a lot of emphasis on that because we've seen that manifestos have become governing documents. Just go back to 2020, 2016, you will see that the NPP has been implementing a lot of what they promised they will do in a manifesto, and civil society organizations have raised the point about how it's become so important now for the parties to get it right, and for us to also, media, make sure that you get the essence of what is being put out there, but also understand it in a way that will inform your vote. And that is exactly what we're doing today, with some analysis for you here on your election headquarters. I'm here with Raymond Akwa. I'll be joined by Winston Raymond pretty shortly, and my colleagues on the ground will also bring us the very latest from the ground indeed in Takoradi. You see him there, Kojo-Brace and Samuel Mbura, both of them live for us this afternoon from Takoradi, where we're bringing you this comprehensive coverage of the NPP manifesto launch. This is one of the very first launches that we are going to be looking into, because next week the NDC will also come with their own on Saturday, and we're going to be over that also for you here on your election headquarters. And I want to bring in very quickly my colleagues on the ground, Samuel Kojo-Brace. Samuel, I see from what I see in the background when I just came to you in short that this is almost set to go, and the party's supporters are there in your numbers, waiting to hear what the party has to offer in their manifesto.
For the party, we've seen high-ranking members of the party thronging into this venue just to be part of this process. Now, we are yet to understand why the party chose the Western region to do this, but this is a region that, when it comes to presidential, they've controlled for some time. Yeah. So probably it is to consolidate those gains. That's why. But you've been here, you know, for some time now, since morning. What do you make of what's happening here?
Well, from coming on Friday to Takoradi, it was actually a busy journey. Of course, many people were thronging from different parts of the country to Takoradi to witness all this important program. We know very well that the choice of the Western region is because of the fact that it plays a crucial role in Ghana's elections. If you look at the precedents since 2000, we know that the Western region was the game changer for the NPP to win that particular elections. And if you look at the voting dynamics here, it has been a solid background for the governing NPP.
Yeah. So in 2004, the NPP won it again. Yeah. In 2008, they did. And they won it in 2016 and 2020 as well. So it tells you that, yes, it fits into what you're saying, that this region, it sort of tilts towards the NPP.
Exactly. So even looking at the constituency dynamics currently, out of the 17 constituencies that are in the Western region, 13 of them are for the governing NPP, whilst 4 of them are for the NDC. So obviously it is a region that happens to be swinging in the interest of the governing New Patriotic Party, and that is one of the reasons that has actually, contributed to their hosting it in the Western region. And in my conversation with most of the bigwigs of the party, they are optimistic that Western region is going to give them their votes in these upcoming elections, and they are so much enthused about the reception they have received in the Western region. Take note that on the day that we had the health walk around the principal street of Takoradi, you notice that dozens of people poured onto the street to support the NPP's cause, and the responses were generally that despite the challenges that are encountered, the people of the Western region somehow still have faith with the governing NPP, and that is rather giving them that boost, that at least they have a stronger prospects in this upcoming election. And you have already seen that the whole streets of Takoradi have been adorned with the paraphernalia of the governing New Patriotic Party, with many people thronging towards this rally. I don't know if whether you took note of the fact that the Ghana Police Service has also deployed heavy men. There's actually heavy security on the grounds coming to the GSTS here in Takoradi, where the manifesto launch is supposed to take place.
All right.
I spoke with the police chief. He indicated that yes, they have enough men on the ground, but he wouldn't tell me exactly the number of men that have been deployed. We have also seen the military coming to take part in this exercise to ensure that at least there is peace and orderliness. And you also know very well that the hospitality industry is also cashing in, because it was actually a Herculean task getting a place to stay when we arrived. And if it's the case that we had not booked so many, booked our reservation, it would have been the case that we will not get a place to stay. So the presence of the NPP here has actually boosted the local market. They are cashing in. And one interesting thing I have also noticed is that it's like some of them are also increasing their rates at the hotels. Because if you check online, hotels that were going for 500 Ghana cedis, 550, they are now going for around 600, 650 and all that. So yes, the campaign launch is focused on the political future of the governing NPP, but on the local economy, it is actually helping them to reap in some gains.
Well, quite interesting. One thing people will be waiting to hear is the sort of plans that this government has for them. The next Baumia government has for them. We've heard snippets of the things that they say they will do. We've heard the promises of the taxes that they would want to cancel if they should be voted. Today we'll get to hear more about the actual plans that the Baumia Dr. Matthew Poku Prempeh government will have for the people of Ghana. Specifically, once it is being held here, what is in it for the Western region? Now you hear broader themes, themes of what the next government will intend to do. But you've seen anxious faces of the members of the New Patriotic Party here. They would want to hear from their party what are the details of the manifesto. They've heard from the NDC, specifically on the youth, what the NDC intends to do for the party, for the youth of Ghana. The question that many of them are asking themselves now is, what is our party, going to do for the youth?
I remember when the running mate, Dr. Mahmoud Dr. Matthew Poku Prempeh, was addressing the youth as well as the NPP supporters during the health walk. He made mention that their priority as a party is to ensure that the youth gets employment, and this particular manifesto is going to feature heavily on that. And I've already been privy to some of the snippets of it, which was presented before the National Council of the governing NPP, and presented by Oseche Mensah, who is chairman of the committee. He made mention that yes, at the time that the NDC took over in office, the GDP was performing so well, and then they contributed to a sharp decline of it. And these were rules that the NPP actually took over.
So they specifically mentioned that it dropped to 3.4% in 2016.
Exactly. So these are some of the issues or the economic analysis that they have made, and they have done the analysis not from 2020, not from 2016, but at the time the NDC took over from the NPP, and what the party has been able to do so far, emphasizing the fact that the Dr. Baumia Napo ticket is concentrating on digitizing the economy and also ensure that there is transformation and the economy will bounce back to power. So some of these things are going to feature heavily. But we know very well that there is also an issue that has to do with infrastructure, road infrastructure and all that. You have seen that in Takoradi. When I was coming all the way from from the Kasua stretch towards Cape Coast, I noticed that there was some level of work being done. They are expanding the roads, getting towards Takoradi, the main township of Takoradi. When I was doing the strolling last night, I also noticed that some equipment were already on site working on the roads and ensuring that they are motorable. I remember the last time you came here, you reported about the runabout. I am not familiar with Takoradi, but there was a runabout that reported about the fact that it was deteriorating.
The background runabout just here.
Exactly. When I came, I saw it for myself, very, very bad. But we have seen contractors on site. The NPP is still promising that they would ensure that the road infrastructure is actually dealt with. So many more of these are what we are going to expect from Dr. Maito Poku-Prempeh and his boss, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, in this coming.
So what we've gathered is that from this manifesto, you'll be hearing things about how the party wants to keep increasing agro-processing, so setting up of agro-processing industries in the district. You'd hear something about that. You'd hear something about job creation, also about sustainable food production for the country. These are things we hear. And also, we are likely to hear something about the plans they have for the elderly people. You know about LEAP.
Exactly.
We'll be having details about what the next government intends to do for elderly people. So these are things that we expect that we'll be hearing from their manifesto.
Exactly. Yesterday, when I was engaging some of the residents here in Takoradi, we know that Takoradi is known as the oil city. The people's concern was that they are not getting their share of all these natural resources that are here, and in the midst of these natural resources, they are still dealing with bad road network, infrastructure and all that. So they are expecting that at least the manifesto will also be specific about what the people of Western region will benefit. I mean, you are much familiar with the terrain here. The people are also into farming. They are into various processing and all that. But I'm saying Mensah Fiakoto, who is a former aspirant in this presidential race, joining us on the discussion here. But the people are really expectant as to what the manifesto will say about the agriculture. Thank you very much for joining us on your election headquarters on Joy News. How impressed are you about this particular program?
Well, you can see that the spirit is here. The turnout is very great. And all the supporters from all the four corners of this country are here for this great launch of our manifesto.
Yes, so we know the contribution of the Western region when it comes to the food basket. You've been in that shoes before as the Minister of Agric. What do you think that your government has done for the people of the Western region that they should be happy about?
I mean, the ordinary farmer who farms 2-3 acres. And that's a typical farmer you find not only in the Western region, but throughout the country. The support given to them in terms of fertilizers, improved seeds, extension services by this government has been unprecedented. This is why in the course of this our term, we've had the highest growth in agriculture, 6.2% in 2021. It's never happened for many, many years. So I'm sure that the benefits that the farmers have received, they will remember to vote for Bawumia in the
Well, Doc, on that same leg, this year, farmers are complaining of the late distribution of input. I mean, what do you make of this?
But even worse is the shortage of the rainfall.
Yes.
You know, for 2 months now, in most parts of the country, there hasn't been rain.
Yes.
It is because of the environmental impact and all of that. So that is of more concern than the input. Of course, I'm not saying that we shouldn't have. There are many areas in this country where there hasn't been any rainfall shortage. But we're saying, you know, these things, they come with timing and so on. And that is the problem.
But you managed PFJ, and we are in PFJ too. And if by now the input have not gone, isn't it a worry? How do we improve it?
No, we learn these things. PFJ has been on for 7 years now. And in all those 7 years, you cannot tell me that the impact has not been negative. Otherwise, how would we be having such high growth of rate in agriculture? Consistently, when we came in, agricultural growth was only 2.3%. We managed to get it in 3 years to 6.6%, 6.2, 4.4. So you see that the growth is going up. And it's all because of the policies, the good policies of the Akufo-Addo government through planting for food and jobs.
But this same policy, I'm saying that now the input have not gone. You understand the seasons that we are in. If the input do not go early, they miss the season and it becomes, I mean,
those kinds of problems which have led to the delay in the distribution, I cannot tell you now because I'm no longer in charge of the ministry. But I'm sure the authorities there are looking at it, taking lessons for next year's.
But you've managed this ministry before. We've always been talking about rain-fed agriculture and why it is not something we should encourage. Why are we not able to, implement irrigation schemes that can help farmers?
Well, Lugu Dam alone was going to cost us $1 billion. And you know the situation that we are in. We cannot afford very expensive infrastructure in agriculture. But we can afford the basic ones, like these inputs that I'm talking about. It costs maybe 700-800 million Ghana cedis, okay? But if you're talking about irrigation, which will be extended throughout the country, we're talking about billions of dollars. And at this stage of our development, we cannot afford it. Of course, there are small irrigation schemes to start, which have started for many, many years. And we have continued with those schemes. But the impact of the substitution, where rainfall fails a large majority of the land, and you are expecting irrigation water to replace it, we are very far from there. So the focus is to increase our farmers' productivity by giving them modern inputs, improved seed, fertilizer, extension services, so they can improve their productivity.
But Doc, did you know it was going to be this expensive when you promised that you would construct the dam, the Palugo Dam?
No, of course. I mean, the president cut a sword 4 years ago. But in the meantime, we've been hit by this economic crisis. So it's something that we need to look at. You know, you can plan, but situations come in where you cannot implement. And this is a classic example.
But you see, the reason why they are predicting of food crisis next year is because of the rains, right? But we also promised of the one village, one dam. It didn't happen. Farmers now. How confident are you that indeed you will be able to win come December?
Well, I mean, that is something else. I mean, this is why we are bringing out the manifestos and our intention. And we are going to sell it to Ghanaians. We are hoping that they will get some comfort out of that message and vote for us so that we can continue with our government in power.
But I mean, can we really trust your party? Because there are a lot of things you said you would do that you didn't do.
If I don't trust my party, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be a member of the party. I believe that between us and the NDC, we are more truthful to our promises than the NDC. Don't forget, I've been 8
can deliver the seat for you?
Definitely. I'm sure.
You didn't believe he was the right man to lead your party. You believe you're the one.
That was an internal matter. That is past God. It happens in any party. You see in America what is happening there? Yeah. So that is democracy, you know. It doesn't mean that at the end of the day, you don't believe this or that. We are talking about the party, the new patriotic party. And I'm saying to you that our capacity to deliver on our promises are far higher than the NDC.
All right. Doc, I'm grateful to you that you could pass through. All the best, sir. So that's the former Agric Minister, Dr. Owusu Afriyie. We're still here trying to take you through what is happening here in Takoradi. This is where the NPP is launching their manifesto today. At the end of today, we will get to know exactly what the issues are. Let's try and raise more people for you here in Takoradi. This is the GSTS Park where the NPP is launching its manifesto. Like Dr. Owusu just explained, I mean, he could not point out some of the things we'll hear, but he says we should wait and see what the party will be telling us. They believe that they have done way better than the NDC, and therefore we should vote for the NPP. Well, this is still here in Takoradi. We will be bringing you more interactions on your election headquarters live from Takoradi. So if as you guys in the studio hold it over, we'll come back to you with more from Takoradi, where the action is happening, where the NPP is launching its manifesto.
And thank you very much. And we'll be crossover again as we continue our coverage of the NPP manifesto launch. And Winston is here with me, so is Raymond Aqua. There's a lot to get through for you. You can see the place is already very packed with people waiting for this to get underway. We've heard from the former Greek minister, but there is a lot that we need to place in context before we start and hear the 2024 manifesto and what it promises to do between 2025 up until the next elections, really. But remember that the context of this is the 2020 manifesto, and that is very key. This is a Bawumia who obviously is seeking to take the mantle, or has taken the mantle as far as the party is concerned, from the incumbent president, and seeking to lead this country in 2025 and beyond. He is, in essence, building on the achievements of this particular administration and led by Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo. There are a few fair bit of things in the 2020 manifesto that they put out, he himself articulated in 2020. What is he doing to the ones that had been achieved, and what is he going to do to those that they failed to achieve? That is, in essence, what we're going to be looking at, but also looking at his own policy proposals that he's put forward. Remember that before today, he's laid out a very extensive policy proposal that he placed before us to assess. And so we are not starting from nothing. We really already have a sense of where Bawumia wants to take this country because he's laid out his policy proposals already. We expect the manifesto to flesh this out a bit more. We're going to be analyzing that for you and then looking ahead to the 2024 manifesto, which should be launched pretty shortly. And Winston Raymond will help me do that. And so I want us to get into that right now. One of the first things that we looked at in the 2020 manifesto, because this is on the back of that, is how many promises they put out. And we are looking at it and thinking, goodness me, that's a lot. 223 promises in total. That's quite significant. What it means is they did not achieve everything. They have done some. What do you do with the overwhelming majority that we know has not been achieved is a key question that Bawumia needs to tell us. Is he throwing all these away and bringing in fresh ideas, or he's going to take some of this and build on?
Well, I think that, to be very frank with you, he's not going to be able to. He may take some of these and build on, and we've actually seen that, and as you move on, you realize that some of the promises as captured in his vision statement were part of the NPP's manifesto in 2020. About 15 of them were set on that. But this is the point. I mean, it doesn't make economic sense, for instance, if you say you want to go and build an airport at Cape Coast, because you're thinking of building an airport in Takoradi. It's only an hour's journey from, Takoradi to Cape Coast. The harbour is not something I'm sure Bawumia would want to continue. These were promises that were made in 2020, for instance, that you don't find in there. The fact that you find 15 of the promises that he made, or the NPP made in 2020 in his vision statement, is an indicator that certainly you would have a departure from some of the things. But again, as I've always maintained, that was his vision statement. Today is the manifesto. And post the vision statement, he put in place a manifesto committee. What was their terms of reference, for instance? We will know. What I think we'll see today, a lot of the things that they have done in the past, and broadly what they intend to achieve going into 2024. But I don't intend to see, I don't think I'll see a lot of...
And Raymond, let's place this in context. These 223 promises that were made in the 2020 manifesto came in the COVID year. COVID, we discovered it, at least was recorded, first 2 cases on the 12th of March 2020. Going into December, we knew the economy was going to take a hit, and they still came forward with 223 promises. Post-start, the economy had tanked. We are in a crisis still, we're trying to recover. Do you expect to see that many promises in the 2024 manifesto?
To the extent that in that 2020 manifesto, there were promises that were carried forward from the
2016
manifesto. It makes sense that a certain level of continuity. So they say, we want to do this, but we were unable to do within the period required. The 8-year period was the argument that's required. Now, since it's the same political party, it would make sense that some of them are transferred into the new manifesto. But an indication as to whether or not this is not Fufu Sosola Road that appeared in the budget consistently, and later on we actually ended up doing it. I get you, 223, and I've been urging caution for a very long time. I think we should manage expectations this year more than any other year. Why am I saying so? The belief that we are out of the woods, it's misplaced completely. And everybody understands that we are not out of the woods yet. Secondly, they're thinking that it is the number of promises that really make a campaign strong. It's also misplaced, and there's enough evidence to back it. Because most of the time, I was just reading Jampo and Professor Emmanuel Dabber's report on youth participation and manifestos. It is a few of them that stick in the heads of the people. Mostly it's the ones that are translated, abridged, and shared as the leading ones that people get to consume. I'm talking about the larger majority.
An example, this week, the NDC, well, last week now, NDC launches Youth Manifesto. The only thing most people remember is their intervention for first-year students.
Brilliant.
The free tertiary for first-year students is the only thing most people remember. But that document is quite...
I had a conversation after the launch on the agric and youth skills development section because I thought employment and agric were very important. I asked people prior to the conversation whether the litany of things that Idmore Combat stood on the platform and mentioned as the things that the NDC will do when it comes to youth skills development and agriculture, I could not get a single individual pointing out a single one of those things to me, which buttresses your point 100%, that it's a few of them that sticks. So if you know that truly, you cannot be boxing yourself into a corner, especially when you know people will track some of these promises. Boxing yourself into a very difficult corner when you do not know how you're going to run going into 2025, 2026, and the difficult years of 2027 and 2028. And I keep on mentioning difficult years because we all know that we are still within the years where we are not paying as much as we should pay for debt. So we are, we are still cozying around, and that's what we call recovery largely. If we end up having to deliver on those ends and go back to the years where we said, when we take 100% of our revenue, 80 will be remuneration and paying of what they call the interest payments alone. If you go back to those years, you then ask yourself, how are you going to fulfill, especially when in our part of the world, promises are predominantly not functional structural changes, but rather, I will build you this. I will build you, how do you call it, a airport.
Airport, you see.
I will build you some factory. I will build one of those ones. If you list those ones, and I'm expecting that not as much as 223 or even half of it. Let the people understand that you have a plan to get them out of the current difficulty. But that plan will not be promising them that every road in this country will be done.
Fixed.
Or launching ahead of time, drip with the hope that merely giving a district, let's say Jabin, merely giving Jabin a tractor will mean that all the arterial roads, some of them are done, wonderful roads, will also be done. I hope you get the point. So it is what is realistic. And some will take to the fanciful ones. Others are more discerning. They will think you are taking them for a ride because they can read the same economic data and statistics like you're doing. And you do not necessarily get there because if you are struggling and you have a credibility, every government that stays 8 years has a credibility crisis to go into the future. The question will be, why didn't you do all in the 8 years?
Which was a question that Breeze was asking.
Yes, that question is a very difficult question to answer.
Yeah.
So if you come and lump a lot more, what's the guarantee that you can do within the next 4 years? Or you want the next 8 years to deliver on those ones? That is the reason why it makes sense that you speak to the people in a way they feel you are realistic and reasonable with them.
So you're expecting that a lot less number of promises in the 2024 manifesto than 223
Evans.
in 2020?
Certainly.
Winston?
No, well, you'd say certainly, but the
Or you expect to be more?
there could be more. And then I say there could be more. because
Should it be more? I mean, it's a question we're trying to answer.
No, it doesn't have to be
Knowing
more.
where we are
it doesn't have to be
in
more.
our economic life.
And I'll tell you why it doesn't have to be more. You see, part of the problem, and you've talked about the fanciful, they say recall. We all agree that when you're going into a campaign, what was the NPP promising in 2016? Okay, free SHS, 1 district, 1 factory, 1 constituency, $1 million, Zongo Development Fund, 1 village, 1 dam. What was the NDC promising to us all? He says, oh, I'll continue all the things I'm doing. At the time, if you listen to the NDC, they're telling you, oh, we're doing this, we're doing that. We'll continue with them. We'll continue with them. So in effect, continuation. People bought into the NPP's campaign of 2016. By 2020, even though, and the NPP reduced their promises in 2020, to be very honest with you, they had more promises in 2016. By 2020, they had reduced the promises, but they were still making those promises. And so then it comes into rent support scheme for, graduates and young people, whatever. I am saying that in 2024, what is it that we want to do as a country? That should be the most important thing. And again, it's the reason, look, today we're talking about, free academic facility user fee for level 100 students. Then we ask the question, why can't that person go and take a loan? Those of us who went to school at the time that we needed guarantors, I'm sure if you were a beneficiary of the student loan scheme, you actually was advised to go for the form even before you entered university campus. SNIT did that. So you could have gone for the form before entering university campus. Now, your admission letter was it. So if any political party wants to say, I want, in continuation, you must use your student loan trust fund, for instance, to fund it. You can start from level 100. Make it easy for them to start. Because my point is that every time we make these fanciful promises, it's a cost to the state. It's a cost to the state. Is it the most pressing thing that we need in this country? And so, look, I have also said, and I'm not one who departs from comments that I've made in the past, I have said that the NDC has the momentum because people are talking about, free level 100 fees.
And they're talking about 24-hour economy.
24-hour economy. The NPP today would want to also gain some momentum, direct conversation onto the party, and they would make these promises. Raymond, if you listen to the National Youth Organizer of the NDC, he says, we want to win an election. And for me, that's very critical.
And this is where we're asking specific questions, like, which data is backing this claim?
Yeah.
That students are not taking up admission because they lack resources.
Well, there's data that I saw this week, that analysis done by Kofi Asari's Africa Education Watch, that shows that you had 44,000 students in 2021, I believe, who gained admission, but were not able to take up those slots. And then they went into breaking down the reasons. The number one reason was financial.
Okay.
No, we're not asking what has been done by the education institution here that you're talking about. We're asking what informed the NDC's decision.
So the NDC pointed that research.
No,
So
at the time
me-
he didn't. No, at the
Yeah.
time.
As in the time they launched it?
No, at the time the
We asked the
organizer was speaking to the matter.
Yeah, but
he couldn't reference
yeah,
that.
but Raymond, let me actually,
Subsequently, I've also seen the reference to that
yeah,
document.
but let me also make the point. So, 44,000 could not go to school because they couldn't pay. Those 44,000, you say after first.
It wasn't the only reason, though, but it was the number one reason.
Yeah, but, so less than 44,000. But those people you say after first year, you're going to help them by giving them a loan scheme.
But we are talking about the NDC
No,
manifesto.
I'm coming. No,
Today's
I'm
NPP
using this to
manifesto.
make a point. I'm using this to make a point. Because anybody who studied the NPP's promises in 2016, right, would have known. And we pointed out, would have known that a lot of these promises were not achievable or attainable. Why? If you want to irrigate land, is it dams? I mean, do you just go and dig football-sized dams?
You remember?
Is that what you do?
I don't. Okay, let me not interrupt you. Remember the story, the hotline documentary I did, the acid test. Listing the litany of promises and asking, do you really have any fiscal room to deal with all of these? Because you remember, the conversation in 2016 was that we had very little resources left. And there was nowhere on the horizon that government was looking. Then the only thing that was feasible and possible at the time was borrowing. So I even sometimes take the view that if you voted for all of these promises by the NPP, you had endorsed a level of borrowing that was higher than the borrowing that we had done in times past.
So let me just
You get the point?
And very briefly, because there's a lot more we need to.
But let me just add this. One of the things I am going to do now is that every promise you make, we'll do the fiscal impact analysis of the promise. It's one of the things we don't do.
And placed in the context of the fiscal space you have to
Exactly.
deliver on that. Because I think that's fundamental where it comes down
Yes,
to.
because you see, we allowed a lot of things in 2016, and this is where we are today. You just don't make promises because you think you must win an election. And so, yes, 223.
Yeah.
We're waiting patiently
To see if they will
to
get
see
close
what
to this.
them, and then we'll test them.
Yeah.
Where are they going to get the money from?
And when you now begin to break it down, this is a 2021. We're sort of setting the tone for what we're about to hear. And so that we can make comparisons there. It's Bawumia, this is Bawumia standing alone now. So this is his manifesto primarily. This was Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo's manifesto, but he articulated it. Remember when he launched it in 2020, he was the one who actually presented it. And the focus at the time was private sector growth, right? I mean, basically still the economy. Because if you put the 41 promises that you find in that sector to the economy, that obviously was overriding focus. They told you where the focus was in 2020. And it also, obviously, everybody knowing where we were in 2020, December, around October when they launched it, knew that in 2021, the economy was going to take a hit. World Bank had projected, IMF had projected at the time that, the global economy was going to take a significant hit. Growth was going to slow. So no wonder the focus was on that at the time, on the economy and the private sector growth. And then you also see fiscal infrastructure there. And by the way, I want to go back to my colleagues live on the ground. We'll come back here and sort of put this in proper context for you. We thankfully have the chairman of the NPP Manifesto Committee, Chairman Sabungsu, with my colleagues there on the ground in Takoradi. Kojo Brace is standing by with him.
Is the epitome of who a Ghanaian is. The traditional upbringing is a Muslim who has Christian upbringing. Then, in terms of coming up through the system, we all know his father, a well-established politician. But then at periods in his life, we experienced lows, for which reason, as by his own account, schooling, he had to even be employed, be engaged as a farmhand, by day laborer. He struggled through life. He went outside to continue. There, he was a factory hand, a taxi driver, but he achieved great success when he graduated. and then turned out to be a lecturer at the university. So a well-established academic. Then he came to Ghana, an economist, worked at the Bank of Ghana, and rose to be the deputy governor. An established and accomplished technocrat. Then he comes out as a politician. For 16 years, he was with his boss, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. 8 of those years, they were in the shadows. And yet they traveled the length and breadth of the country and engaged a cross-section of the citizens of this country. 8 years on, he now comes up as the vice president. He's elected as the flag bearer, and he says, even though I have my own vision, I know society is dynamic, and especially ever since I became the vice president, known people, known friends, no longer can assess me. So let me step out to engage, which is what he did. And again, he stepped out to engage a cross-section of the Ghanaian society. He put together the Manifesto committee, and we were with him wherever he went, wherever he engaged the people, and took out issues that came up, and used it to fertilize his own vision, because the man admits that notwithstanding what he has achieved in life, he's not a repository of knowledge, wisdom, and experience. So we have a mixed grill of his own focus, and we have fertilized his ideas with what we had from the people that we engaged to come out with this comprehensive vision. When he met the people, they raised several issues. As I said, we sieved them, we put them in the net and sieved them, and brought all of them. So this manifesto now is a bold attempt to respond to the issues that were raised, so that at the end of it all, Ghana would, the development agenda will have a value addition that is unprecedented. And we hope that by this, we'll be able to reposition the country called Ghana. Of course, having said that, after the launch, a lot will also depend on the party faithfuls to ferry the message to the people, those down there, so that they would understand, have a buy-in into the message, come with us, so that we'll be able to grow this country to the extent and level that we want to grow the country.
What are the key focus of this manifesto?
The key focus, I beg you, let us hear from the horse's own mouth. Let us hear from the horse's own mouth. I cannot, while the food is being pounded, start the beginning of the drinking of the soup. Thank you very much.
Well, let's try and get the let's try and engage Michael Quay Jr. Michael Quay Jr. is is also part of this manifesto committee. So in terms of trade, what's going to be the focus?
Well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. So the question again, because I couldn't hear.
So I was asking of you are part of the committee in terms of trade. What should be we're looking at?
I'm actually the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee. So yes, there's a lot of things to expect, but I'm sure, as you can understand, we are not allowed to divulge anything out of this particular time. But what I can assure you is that there are a lot of exciting things coming up from the manifesto, and also a bold response. I think one of the things that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has been able to show is that he's not afraid to admit that there were mistakes. We are not afraid, as the finance minister did, to say sorry when certain things haven't gone well. But we also know that this manifesto is in response to a world economic crisis. Just like Joe Biden said just 3 weeks ago, begging the American people to forgive him because of Corona. So why not Ghana? Why does President John Mahama have to go abroad and admit Corona is a problem, but when he's in Ghana, he doesn't want to admit it? then you know it's mischief. But what Dr. Bawumia has done is go around and say, these are the good things that the NPP has done. There were a few ones that didn't go well. How can we make it better? And this is the response in the manifesto. And that is why people like us, for example, say, we have seen President John Mahama as a president, not as a vice president. He told you and me that he was a spare driver and we should make him the main driver. Why is Bawumia not a spare driver? Why is Bawumia not a mate? Of course he's not the main driver. So now that we see that as a vice president, he has shown certain qualities, we believe that if he is made the main driver, if he moves from mate and is given the steering wheel, he'll be able to steer Ghana in the right direction under the certain circumstances that we have today. That is the principle of this manifesto today, and we believe that it will solve many of these problems.
Well, but I mean, everything about this country revolves around the economy, right? Yes. And he is the chairman of the EMT, right? Yes. And we are in these difficult times. Yes. How can Ghanaians trust the same person who was supposed to have superintendent over a very buoyant economy, because he told us you had the men, and ending up this way? How can we trust that he will be the same person?
So when you say we, you mean Dr. Bawumia? But Dr. Bawumia was the head of the EMT, that's true. But Dr. Bawumia was not in charge of the economy, was he? Dr. Bawumia is not the president.
But he was managing.
Wait. And I'm saying,
and that there is the NPP parliamentary candidate for this is the Dom Kwabenya area. Speaking to my colleague Kojo Breeze on the ground there in Takoradi. We lost that feed briefly. We'll reconnect to him and my colleagues on the ground who are bringing us that live coverage of the NPP Manifesto launch. Just before we heard from the NPP parliamentary candidate for Dom Kwabenya, we heard also from the chairman of the NPP Manifesto Committee, that is Osechi Mensah, who used to be the majority leader in Parliament, talk about what to expect, of course, celebrating the flag bearer of the party, the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He will not tell us what to expect, though. He didn't want to focus on what the big ticket items are on the manifesto. We have seen a document, though, that spelled out a few things, at least 17 big ideas we expect to hear in this NPP 2024 manifesto. That document that will be out soon. It includes a whole host of things, including significant wide-ranging tax reforms. It includes the chieftaincy sector and a very controversial proposal to give allowances to divisional chiefs and queen mothers, in addition to the paramount chiefs who already are given allowances. So there are a fair few big things in there that will be analyzing for you here. We'll be crossing over back there to the grounds to join my colleagues there to get a bit more understanding from some of the key players on the ground for you pretty shortly. But my guests, Raymond Akwa and Winston Raymond, not guests at all, an integral part of the political desk with me. We're looking at the 2020 manifesto, laying the stage for the 2024 manifesto. And we were saying basically that then the focus was on the economy. We don't expect this to change this year, do we? That again, the focus should be on the economy, considering where we are, even more so in 2025 and beyond than in 2020.
It will be on the economy. I mean, so far, the document that you've talked about, the 17 bold policies, I've just been going through. I see that more than 10 of them is in relation to the economy. So certainly that's something that he has to focus on. Now, the economy also, because the economy is bad. And anybody seeking to lead this country must show how he intends to, not only get the economy working, but how he intends to grow the economy. Because look, Raymond has made a reference to post-2026, and we've had this conversation before. What we are experiencing today, if nothing changes, post-2026 will be worse. So 2025, 2026 is a critical year for this country. And that is why I've maintained we want to see bold policies that can transform this economy. Today, just last Tuesday, the Graphic Business did a story that said government had for the 5th time at the time not met its treasury bill target. Now, the treasury bills actually what is being used to fund short-term government obligations. And they're rolling over maturing funds. If government is not meeting these targets, what happens? It will be important to note, for instance, how as a country we want to grow the economy without unnecessarily borrowing. Because we have seen what borrowing has done to us. And consistently when you hear persons speak, they look at going back to the international capital market. What that tells me is that we just don't want to learn lessons.
That's the only plan.
Our only plan is just go ahead and borrow.
Have access to the market so that I can borrow again.
Years ago, we were told of how the money was in Ghana. We're told of how money was in Ghana. And so we can actually run this economy. And one of the things we'll be hearing again, we'll be talking about building industries. Again, my problem consistently is that we throw out things, we'll build industries, facilitate the building of industries. Facilitate how?
And by the way, something, Raymond, very briefly.
The things you mentioned, and I've seen the first one, sustain and expand the rebounding of the Ghanaian economy, enhancing job creation, well-remunerated jobs, increasing food production to achieve food sufficiency and food security, facilitation of the construction of many more industries, especially in the districts, to provide agricultural...
Again, how is that different from 1D, 1F is a question?
I am hearing maybe the details, maybe how that will happen. But if these are the things, and I'm not saying they are wrong, making sure that you sustain and expand a rebounding economy is absolutely key. But I'm hearing the same things. I am looking forward to, and I think the problem is that because we have not admitted that something drastically went wrong with our system before the years that we are complaining about, 2020, 2021, we are truly thinking the things we need to do are the same old things and to get us where we ought to be. And I am insisting that that will not work out. Why would it not work out? Two things will happen. There is no guarantee that next year or the following year we'll have access to these international capital markets. There's no guarantee today. So what will happen next year? We'll rely on the same sources that we've been trying to do with the ideas and other supports that we need today to fund everything. Will we still be relying heavily on the treasury bills market to do our engagements? When we list, and let's not get it wrong, we still have a huge chunk of those Agenda 111 hospitals. We have overlays. If the NPP wins the election, it has responsibility to finish many of the projects that the current government is doing. You get my point? So you cannot abandon them. Adding on to it, it's quite dangerous to 1 and 2. And yet, I'm not seeing on the horizon any major boosting activity that's going to double our GDP and make money more available for government to use, or even tax. And again, two things have been happening. If you check our medium-term revenue strategy, we are basically saying we are maintaining the current, what they call the taxes that we have, e-levy and co. On the other side, there's a lot of talk about removing e-levy and others.
Yeah, just pause, because that's where we're going to go into the Bawumia's own thinking around what he plans to do if he wins. Because it comes to some of the things you've said. We already have an indication what he wants to do. And we're going to wait for the manifesto to flesh it out a bit more. But just to wrap up on the 2020 manifesto, going into this, there was a lot of focus in 2016, obviously, on education. But as you move towards 2020, the focus on education sort of, didn't come close to what you had, say, for infrastructure and economy, for obvious reasons, because the economy then had become the most important thing to focus on because of COVID. I don't expect Bawumia to also make education such a priority in terms of where the focus will be. The economy, again, as we've said, will be the most important thing. In fact, the economy will actually determine how much priority you place on the economy, because you have to put everything here, and whatever is left is what you spread over. And that's what we're saying, that we'll be looking at the number of promises they put out and seeing if they meet the fiscal test, right? Yeah. The fiscal impact test that we'll be doing. In essence, and you see, housing is going to be key, obviously. Governance, and you've seen the CDD document that they released yesterday in terms of what they expect the parties to focus on in their manifestos when it comes to governance. I'm looking for some of the things in there, for example, on corruption, on the election of MMDCEs, and I think I don't know what Bawumia's commitment is as far as that is concerned, though, because that is going to come up for some.
Let me just make a quick point, because you talk about housing, you go to the district. You see, consistently we talk about bridging the youth migration, because there are too many people in Accra and Kumasi. And that's why when it comes to youth not in education, not in employment, and not in training, majority of them are in Accra and Kumasi. But this is the point. Anybody who has a bit of knowledge about business retention and expansion will tell you that you start from the district level. You don't start from the district level, but actually sitting in Accra and saying people should bring plans that will do what? That they go to the districts. Because nobody is going to go into areas that they do not get anything or they don't see anything there. What you do is actually to equip the district assemblies. And that is why I say, in the NPP's first manifesto, Evans, of 2017, first budget of 2017 March, they said they were going to give the district assemblies 2 million Ghana cedis each as equity funding for one district, one factory. What that would have done was to now give the district assemblies some advantage to get people to come partner them so they can develop their districts and by extension create jobs. If you sit in Accra and establish a 1D, 1F, or I don't know how they're going to call it this time around, you establish an industrial whatever and expect me to go into rural areas, or expect you, Evans Mensah, to go into rural areas. Whoever you bring into this country will ask himself a lot of questions and say, what am I going to get there? Eventually, you would see what they were doing. They go around and say, this is technical support.
Okay.
That is technical support.
Wait just a second. I want to take you back to Takoradi live because Kojo Brace is standing by with Kojo Nkrumah, who you're talking about housing. He works in housing Mensah. He's also the vice on the Manifesto committee. Let's go live now.
It's on the horizon. You know, like even the Bible says, in the latter days, there are difficult moments. So difficult times will come. What you need is a leader who has clarity with clear ideas, bold solutions, innovative ideas to resolve those challenges and to take advantage of the opportunities ahead of us. We are clear that our leader has those bold ideas, those bold solutions, those innovative ideas. He's going to outline them today. And what we encourage all of you, our colleagues, for example, in the media and in civil society, to do is pick the issues. If you say transport fares go up when crude oil prices go up, what is Mahmoud Bawumia's answer? And what is John Mahamed's answer? When you say energy prices sometimes go up, what is Mahmoud Bawumia's answer? What is John Mahamed's answer? When you say free SHS needs to be improved, it's not just about now trying to reinvent history by saying that they started it. That's not true. Everybody knows it. Okay, we even consider free SHS needs to be improved. What is Mahmoud Bawumia's idea on improving free SHS? What is John Dramani Mahamed's idea on improving free SHS? So what should Ghanaians expect? Ghanaians should expect clarity in policy commitments from us, what we hope to enter in 2025 as a social contract with them. And Ghanaians should look to compare our propositions to the propositions of the NDC's leader, John Dramani Mahama. And between the two, we are sure that Ghanaians are discerning and will make a choice.
Ghanaians will also compare your performance with the promises. They'll cite some of the promises you made to them that you couldn't fulfill.
And then they will also cite the about 80% of the promises in 2020, for example, which we have fulfilled. They will compare both. And then they will compare it to the NBC's promises which they made, which they were not able to fulfill, and the ones that they were able to fulfill. And they will make a decision. Ghanaians are discerning.
Yeah, but again, Ghanaians say this is a government that promised to even deal with corruption, and it couldn't. So a lot of
the government that promised that one of the ways to deal with corruption was to set up the office of a special prosecutor. The president did not whinge from it, he did not hide from it. He set up the office of the special prosecutor. He increased, in fact, unprecedented budget allocations to anti-corruption institutions, including the office of the special prosecutor. He appointed Martin Alamisi Benz Kaiser Amidu, a known member of the NDC, former Deputy Attorney General, as the special prosecutor. Later, he's appointed Kisia Jabeng to take up his role, and nobody has fettered them in any way on how they fight corruption. So the commitments to deliver on fighting corruption he has fulfilled.
But Martin Amidu, you mentioned would disagree with you.
That
I mean, the office is there, but the commitment on the part of the government, the president, to deal with it has not been there. He wrote about it.
We do both agree that resources were made available. as to how they were able to access the resources, as to how many cases they were able to successfully conclude. I'm sure the jury is out there. We currently have a new special prosecutor who has not been fettered in any way in doing his job. He's got the resources, the budgetary allocation, as to how many cases they've dealt with. Again, the jury is out. So when you ask the president what he has done about it, he has fulfilled his part. Look at what he's done with the police, the kind of investment in the security agencies to resource them so that they can fight crime, fight all other offenses against the state. The president, the executive have fulfilled their part. You now have other agencies that you should be asking questions of.
So in this manifesto, in housing, where you are the minister, what should we expect?
You want me to read the manifesto before my boss gets here?
I mean, we just want to understand what is it.
You should be sure that the kind of work that has been done in housing, for example, for the security services alone, 1,000 homes. The last about 320 we just handed to the police service, but 1,000 in all. If your government has delivered 1,000 homes for the security services and it promises you that it's going to do more for security, you better believe us. If the government of Nana Danko Akufo-Addo has done about 1,000 homes with TDC in Tema and they promise you that they are going to do more, you should believe it. Today is Saglemi. It's a matter that we are resolving and you are all following how we are going through the processes with transparency, etc. So you will hear some bold promises in housing that will benefit the many, not the few, and you can believe that this next administration will deliver on those.
But the houses that we've seen have always benefited a few, not the many.
Oh, the 1,072 homes in Boom. Have you been there? Yeah. You've been there, and the people you saw there were the few rich people in this country.
I mean, we're looking at the faces like
no, they are public servants who are benefiting from that, and that's what we are investing some more in.
Thank you, Kojo. So that says the housing minister. You're so here in Takoradi, GSTS to be precise. That is where we are. A heated environment. You could see that the party is geared up for this. You hear the chants by the supporters. You can hear the preparation in the auditorium. We understand that the flag bearer, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, will be walking in any moment from now, and it's expected that we would have quite some promises, and we'll look forward to that. So stay with us here, and let's give you all of that. Evans, over to you guys.
And thank you very much there. We're going to be staying with that. And he's talking about more promises, right? But Bawumia has already put out 68 promises on his campaign trail. Well, call it so. 68. And how many of these will find expression in the 2024 manifesto? In fact, I'm expecting all 68 to find expression in there. And then you can build on that. And then you can flesh it out. But 68 is quite a lot. But it's still less than 223, right? How many more promises would you add to this, though, is a key question. But this is what we've counted so far. So he's not coming into today with a blank slate. He's not coming into today with a blank slate. He's already coming into today with a host of them already he's put out that we're going to be looking at. Let's get into that. So if you look at the breakdown, as we anticipated, economy is the focus. With 29 of the promises that he's put out already focus on the economy. And we've said it already. That is what we're expecting. Yeah. And that is what the data is again proving to be. And this obviously is looking into 2025 and looking at where the economy is going to be. Our renegotiated debt arrangement, a lot of them will come into play. We'll start paying them in 2025 and beyond. So you expect the economy to take a hit. And this recovery, many have said, is going to take 10 years. So we're just in this phase where we're just trying to see how we manage within the IMF program. And many have also said that they don't see this IMF program ending with a complete out-of-the-woods situation.
No, we may actually extend it.
We may actually extend it, yeah. Right? So rightfully, the focus is on the economy. But key question is, what about the economy is he proposing? We'll come to that. But then you also see mining. And so 3 weeks ago, I had Miracles in the studio talking about the promises and the promises that you're putting out. And I asked him, so what is your top 3 flagship policy proposals for this year's elections? The first thing he mentions was tax reform, tax amnesty. But then part of that first 3 is what they're proposing in the mining sector, which in essence is to say they want more local participation in the mining sector. That is, in essence, part of what you see in the mining focus there for the government. But I'm also looking at, I haven't heard what they want to do to fix the challenge with illegal mining, right? The closest I've come to hearing anything about it is regularizing it, but that's a phrase I've heard before. It hasn't quite materialized into anything. They've done the community mining as your vehicle to delivering that. Community mining, talk to people. Is that become an avenue, a cover for illegal mining in the communities anyway? The communities are complaining about that. So that's another thing. But then you have tourism. I mean, your good friend Bobo is there. But you can see that they are placing quite an emphasis for it to be in third place. I don't know how much you're reading into that.
Well, I mean, it's the way to go, because when people come into your country, whenever they're here, research will indicate that they spend sometimes above $2,000 on a visit. And we know what the year of return and beyond the return have done for us. And so if we can actually tap into this sector and tap into it very well, it could be the way to go. I mean, people are giving free visas, and today, the moment South Africa gave free visa, our friends from Adansi Travel said, oh, because of free visa, let us go to South Africa. You know how much you're going to spend in South Africa when you go there. You're going to spend money. And so if we take advantage of that, for instance, there are billions of dollars that we can earn.
I find it fascinating that is in third place in terms of the share numbers.
I think that
promises made.
We're still dealing with the economy. There are generally very key sectors that we tend to ignore. Tourism is part of the economy.
Yeah.
It brings in for countries that prioritize it, like the UAEs and Egypt. It brings in huge amount of money to them. We tend to, because we think we have options, tend to put it on the back burner. We are not we are not on the return, we are still pushing that. There isn't enough active work being done to make sure that every single opportunity, because what do we discuss mostly with our economy? Inflation on one hand and exchange rate. We talk about exchange rate in whichever form. We export goods, then we get money in return, right? Alternatively, when people bring their dollars, come and spend it in your country, that is you getting the hard dollar.
Yeah.
That's improving your economy. So it's other people's way of stemming the powerful influence of foreign currency that they have to go and look for. That it comes to them and they end up benefiting from it. Except that in our case, for some reason, we've always been laid back. Countries that do not have the number of tourist sites that we have or the creative opportunities that we have appear to do more with the little that they have. Sometimes they create it. They create an entire waterfall system and use that to attract people. We are bubbling in the plenty. So we tend to ignore that. We tend to treat it as an afterthought. But it is one of these areas that, and I'm excited that if this will mean, because this government has been here for a long time and there have been a lot of things being said, if this will mean refocusing the center to make sure that its foreign exchange earning capability is improved massively, it would help us. We may even be interested in curtailing interest in other areas that are not working and concentrating on something like that.
You see, Evans, globally, for countries that appreciate tourism, what do they do? Look, I was in Cape Town some years ago, and they took us on a trip of Cape Town. And this guy was telling me, oh, these are colored houses. They've painted houses red. and that's what he's telling me. So I look at him and I'm like, but this guy, why? We have very good stories.
Yeah.
We are very good nationalists in this country. In fact, you have the African of the millennium. His birthplace is a place that must be seen. You've talked about the first, slave ship.
Oh, you mean Mo Kwame Nkrumah?
Yes, no. The African of the millennium.
Okay.
Sorry for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Stop the mischief. But this is a man whom everybody would like to see. His birthplace should be a huge tourist site. Okay? Yes, today we have the Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum. We have other nationalists in this country whom people would want to come and learn more about. Okay? We've talked about the first, it should not just be, the slave castles. We've moved past that.
And even though we represented it differently.
Yeah, you must begin to create other wonders of the world. And tell people, so we started with, the year of return, beyond the return, and we did the destination Ghana. Today, I was, where was I? Yesterday, I was out of town in my farm, and I went somewhere and I saw people gathered by the DSTV watching Big Brother Niger. And I asked myself, so are we saying that in this country, we cannot create any reality show that would get people around Africa, the whole world, glued to their sets and watching?
A good question, because culture, we know, is a very important way of also marketing a country.
Why?
We all know a lot about the United States and some states that we've never been there before.
Yeah.
Right? You can talk quite authoritative about Washington, D.C., because you watch it on television.
Exactly.
So it's important. So let's wrap up on that. So for me, it's fascinating that out of the 68 promises Bawumia had put forth so far in the lead up to today, the policy proposals, 7 of them are on the tourism, sports, and creative arts sector, and it brings that in 3rd place, beaten only by economy and mining. And of course, you have governance, the power sector. Governance is important, so it's great that it's in there in 4th place. And then you have the people with special needs. And I've also heard them emphasize that quite a lot in terms of what they want to do for people with special needs. And then you sitting at the base there is transport. But the credit system is also, the constitutional review is also something that he's touched on already.
You know the thing about credit system? You know the kind of inflation targeting that we do in this country. And I'm going to say something that Raymond would be happy about. You, Ghana, you are not within the core of capitalism. You are the periphery. And the core of capitalism is a credit system. And so when you consistently say you are increasing your policy rate, it affects people's spending. Because you're with the belief that people have too much money and they can just walk to the banks and get access to credit. In Ghana, at the periphery of capitalism, if you don't have a credit system where people can have access to funds easily, and you consistently are increasing policy rate, you are only hurting people the more. It is the reason today industries and people within the private sector cannot grow because lending rates are high.
Well, that's one of the things to focus on today as we look forward to the launch. But something that we noticed, out of the 68 proposals that the flag bearer, Mahmoud Bawumia, had put forth before today, 15 of them very similar to what they had in the 2020 manifesto, right? So in other words, he's not throwing away the entire manifesto of 2020 and starting afresh. He's taking ideas from there and moving on with it. A few of them that we expect a bit of fleshing out today. If you look at consolidated free SHS and TVET, it's going to be repeated. He also wants to consolidate. He actually says he wants to improve it, right? Continue and improve free SHS. The thing I haven't heard, though, what he means by improve. The NDC this past week, in fact, this NDC's expansion on the idea of review, which has become very controversial. I mean, NPP said review means counsel. They maintain review doesn't mean counsel, review means improve. They've said this week that what they mean is they're going to expand free SHS to the private sector. But also, they talk about the boarding is something that they will take a second look at. But at least we know they're going to expand the private sector. Now, the private senior high schools will also benefit from free SHS. It was actually in their 2020 manifesto, but that's what they mean by review. What I haven't heard from the NPP is when...
Sorry, Evans, how does that constitute review?
Well, they say...
Ideally.
You look at it, you want to improve it, they say, well,
yes.
Extend it to private schools.
Proposals for improvement are separate from review. A review is we all sitting down and agreeing, for example, which is what Professor Opoku Amankwa said some time ago was happening. Government will look at everything that goes into free SHS, costs, quality, and every element of that. Then we take each of these elements, like used to happen at the National Education Sector Annual Review. Sector players will meet. They take each of the elements, and what they do is that, what can we do about financing, optimization, rationalization, so that not only are we getting the best for every dollar spent in that sector, we are making sure that it is sustainable going into the future. Then we take the quality element. What is it with quality of free SHS that we are impressed with? Outcomes. Do we have a way of determining whether or not the actual knowledge you want to impart into the children, they get it? Are they fitting into a certain scope about our future as a country? Are they part of the economic development of the country? When I step out of senior high school, am I equipped with something that can make me join any of the workforces, whichever range I fit into? Is that the kind of review you are doing on quality? Then maybe we can also look at the other parts of, so part of it is boarding, the other is day. How much is going into each of these elements, and what can we do about it? Is it still reasonable to spend this amount of money involved? Are we truly feeding the kids what we ought to feed them in the name of freely feeding them, or we are pretending and letting PTAs, or like they say parent associations, so teachers are all part of it, parent associations actually take care of it. So I do not think that they are being forced, or perhaps that's what I think is happening, to now propose ways of making it better without we going through this engagement, because it is absolutely critical.
Well, those are questions
because these questions did not start with the NDC.
Those are questions that we need to ask also of the NPP.
Yeah.
Because as we see, the flag bearer now is saying that he wants to continue but improve. What does improvement mean? What does it mean?
To say you want to improve something means that you have done some work that shows the areas that require improvement.
There must have been some analytical assessment audit that gives you a certain basis to say these are the areas to improve. I mean, and those are the questions. And I'm expecting today when it's launched on this free SHS, now to hear very precisely, what do you want to improve?
That's true.
Right? And what interventions, what new are we going to see with a free SHS? And we know the challenges. They are very obvious. Space is a challenge. Quality has been affected. Just look at the food they're eating. But they also point, I mean, I was listening to the education minister say that if you judge the quality assessment being how students perform in their senior certificate examinations, he looks at that to say that producing that outcome in terms of the number of people passing means this quality.
You see, Evans.
Right? Is that the best way to judge?
Look, so he's using the examination.
Raymond,
but that is the exit. Look, and if more of them are exiting into the universities, for him, it means that you're delivering quality with the current.
I hear the two of you. You've asked very important questions. But I want you to do a content analysis of manifestos in Ghana and find out which manifestos really answer a lot of questions. Okay? So, yes, we're going to hear continue and improve. What, if you're lucky, you will hear is improve by so and so. Nobody provides this. And I'm happy we're asking these questions because there should be a departure from the norm. Because if the NPP had provided, okay, how they were going to go about the one village, one dam, and we had thoroughly discussed that, we wouldn't have been here today. Yes. If the NPP...
But to be fair, those questions were raised when they made a promise. And by the way, on your screen there, you see the running mate to the flag bearer himself also arriving, Dr. Matopoku Prempeh, joining the crowd there today at Takoradi, and you see him waving his hat there to them. He's expected to see shortly. So now we can be setting that this is just about to start, and we expect that this will be pretty snappy, because it's just about telling us your proposal in the NPP manifesto, and we'll see Napo himself make a pronouncement or two. He's been penciled into the program today, also because he's a running mate, introducing his boss, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. So stay with us here as we watch that unfold.
Evans, do you remember the billboard at the Ghana Standards Authority, which had every district and the competitive advantage and the factory that was going to be established? You saw that?
Yeah.
It looked like a pie chart.
Yeah, like a pie chart. So we're going to do this. So this district, and we're going to do that. We're going to do that. But so you saw that.
Yeah.
The point I'm making is that a lot of the time, Nana Akufo-Addo was asked the question, how much free SHS will cost in London? Then when he came to Ghana, they put out the figure. I'm saying this thing because over the time, these politicians just don't do these things. And for me, I'm saying these things because any party that doesn't take you for granted will show you how they intend to.
But here's the thing, Winston. Here on election quarters, we will not allow them to just come and say continue and improve and end
when I finish, you would understand. When I finish the point, you would understand. If Dr. Bawumia comes and throws this kind of will continue and improve free SHS, you haven't said anything. What we want to know is how you intend to improve it.
And then, beyond the how do you plan to fund it?
Exactly.
and where you're going to get the money from.
What we want to know is how you intend to build industries and what are the problems today? What is going to change? I mean, what are the learnings you have learned yourself from the implementation of the previous policy? What are you going to change? Where would that take us? How much is that going to cost us? Don't just throw figures.
Let's quickly run through, because the program is about to start, about the 15 similarities we saw between Bawumia's proposals already and the 2020 manifesto. This is just on the issue around free SHS. But again, the Polugu multipurpose dam was in the 2020 manifesto. And it's a very controversial one indeed. We've seen the controversy around it. Yeah. They spent $11.9 million, and there's nothing on the ground to be seen, except that they've told us that a lot of that was spent on acquisition of land, doing the feasibility study, and designs that, of course, are on paper, but cost us $11.9 million. What is Bawumia saying he will do about it? He's not abandoning it. He says that he's going to prioritize the dam, the construction, but he's going to use the private sector to finance it. How? We need to hear. Yeah. We need to see what are the new estimates, how much it's going to cost us, and how much of that you expect the private sector to give you. But if the private sector is putting money in there, then Polugu, the dam, must yield something for the private sector. True or false? Yeah. If you're a private sector guy, you have the money. Will you put your money in a dam? And if you do so, how do you get the money back? Is a key question.
That's a key question.
You have to find a way. It is not like the Terminal 3 that we know is paying for itself now. Yeah. Right? When the John Mahama administration put the money in, now it's paying for itself. Right? And it's paid for itself quite well if you look at the numbers. So I'm looking forward to really getting them to explain to us how you get the private sector, because this is supposed to be a social intervention.
And
true?
again, yes.
But part of this also had a solar plant.
And part of it,
component.
So the power component.
The power component.
The power component can actually pay for itself.
Yeah.
The irrigation component, you'd have to tell us how that is going to. So ordinarily, you would expect the government to do this. But maybe the private sector, yes.
Even before you complete that thought, when we say power component can pay for itself, we should take an example for what happens with NECO.
Yeah.
It's a very key point.
That's true.
It's a very serious point. How has the financials of NECO been sustainable over the period?
It hasn't been.
It hasn't been. So why are we so convinced that when there is a dam that's provided power, except we are saying there are factories built in the area, those ones, they are not residential people who have difficulties with payment and all of that, you can't do anything about it.
You see.
But if you have those targets,
I get you.
It could make sense.
You. But this is the NETCO problem. I don't want to go into the NETCO problem. The NETCO problem, part of it is a political problem. Part of it. Yeah. You can actually lay it squarely at the doorstep of our politicians. They've created that problem. And so people think they must consume electricity without paying.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a problem.
Yeah, but that's a problem that you also then need to explain to us how you plan to fix that problem with this. Because if you get a private sector in there.
So if you, this is my point. This is my point. If I am the private man, if I give you electricity, I come for my money. We'll solve that one, but we'll solve that one later. When it comes to the irrigation, it is part of the reason sometimes we say the state must facilitate. And when we say the state must facilitate, it is not just saying, we are facilitating, or we've done this with the state, and that's the end of it. The state sometimes must put money in things which will inure to the benefit of the larger populace without the state necessarily expecting that the money that I put in, when you get that money like this. So for instance, if you put money in, say, irrigation, and we are able to develop and plant more rice, it means that you have saved the pressure on the Ghana city.
That's true.
These are things that the state must do. So, for instance, my understanding of using private sector financing is also resorting to borrowing.
A current example. No, it's resorting to borrowing. I mean, unless you are mentioning to me that Raymond Enterprise has already expressed interest and will go into it. You can't tell me that we should wait to 2025 if you don't get it, but what we do?
No, but if you're going to borrow, then you might as well say borrow. But if you get private sector.
No, it's a very...
Let me make the point. One of the things we've not been very good at is to use GOG funding for anything. And we can do that analysis. We can have that debate. So a lot of the things that have been completed, you go and ask a lot of the contractors, they ask, what is the dedicated source of funding? Not GOG funding. If it's common fund, it's okay, we can deal with this. DDF, okay, we can deal with this. The problem is that when it comes to GOG funding, Government of Ghana funding, when Government of Ghana tells you, I'm going to do something, a lot of the time, where the government of Ghana comes in is when there's counterpart funding.
Okay, good. And from the ground there, I'm getting word that the Vice President, the flag bearer, should be arriving pretty shortly, and so we expect this to start pretty shortly. But again, talking about him, another thing that he had told us, again, borrowing from the 2020 manifesto, going into 2024, is offer online tax filing and payment for MSMEs. And the point about this is, Miracle says that for them is their headline policy proposal for 2024, which is the tax reforms and the tax amnesty. And so we're going to expect a bit of that. And this is something that he said already going into this particular manifesto launch about reforming the tax sector and putting in place this tax amnesty, which for Miracles is their flagship. And you know, the thing when he said it that struck me is, but how can that be a flagship? Because coming into, they're going to compete with the NDC, right? The NDC, at least now, has 2 flagships. It rolls off your tongue. 24-hour economy. Academic facility user fee free for first-year students. At least it rolls off your tongue. For the NPP, they say, their flagship is tax reforms. Yes, it will have implications for the economy, but is this something that an average Ghanaian can remember when they get into the booth to vote? You see, why is Manifesto important? And we forget, we're having this great analysis. It is important because it convinces somebody to vote for you other than the other guy. Mm-hmm. Fundamentally, that's why we are doing this. We're not doing this because it's a great intellectual piece. You're doing it because you're hoping that people will see this list of proposals and say, it solves my problem. It fixes a problem I have. I can't go to the hospital, it will get me there. I can't eat 3 times a day, it will give me food, put food on my table. That's a tax reform necessarily convince the ordinary Joe to vote for you. Listen, we'll find that out on December 7th. But that's one. Because you see, we are comparing.
But I was just, I think I've had this conversation with him on a lighter note. I've said to him, how about I defer my tax payment until the tax amnesty starts? That's on a lighter note.
Yeah,
it's not actually meant for me. I mean, I am known. You always be changed.
No, but I must say though, just in line with this, in the last 4 years, we've seen some great reforms as far as the tax sector is concerned. And Baumia has just arrived, by the way. Baumia, you can see there on your screen, just coming from the It Is Possible bus, which is the bus he's been traveling in, by the way. He has shied away from traveling in the just huge convoy. They have their bus where he travels in with his core team and surrogates traveling across the country. And we expect that he'll be coming off one of these buses and getting to the grounds for this to start. But again, just wrapping up on what we're expecting him to be saying today, borrowing from the 2020 manifesto. Again, he's talking about investing human capital. That was in 2020 manifesto. It is here again, and this is a subject that both of you have talked about quite a lot. This 1 million youth in coding. We also see the NDC putting forward the similar proposal. But we expect that we now get a bit more today, right? Again, we talk about exempt VAT on prospecting and reconnaissance when it comes to mining. He's told us going into today, the launch, that he's going to abolish VAT on exploration services. In other words, he's borrowing quite a bit from the 2020 manifesto, right? And some of them he's keeping. Rapidly expand internet services to rural areas, but also aim for 100% internet penetration. So they're rewording a lot of the promises from 2020 into 2024. We're expecting to see all these now in the 2024 manifesto, which is going to be launched, yes?
Yeah, because you see, exempt VAT on prospecting and reconnaissance for mining, abolish VAT on exploration services to encourage mining exploration. You were in there, what has changed? And these are some of the questions that people would ask.
Yeah, and you see, it's fundamental. The reason why we isolated this is you had 4 years
you were there
to fix it, to do it, to implement it. You haven't done it. You are bringing it back, though. So what's your credibility on that subject?
Especially when mining appears to be one of the key issues that you're dealing with. And in all fairness, I think there's general sector players, civil society agreement that VAT and prospecting is making it difficult for local participants to get in there. When you want to promote local participation, it's also making it difficult for it to get a lot more people in the sector, the way we said we wanted it to happen. And that makes it difficult for us to grow the mining sector the way we're growing. 2 things. You are roaming, and I see the Lands Minister roaming and doing all of these conferences, hoping to get people on board. And on the other side, you have some of these things that...
Okay, that in your short is the Vice President and the flag bearer of the NPP arriving there at the venue for the launch of the manifesto. Ahead of him is the national chairman of the NPP himself, who's also going to be playing a significant role today. And he's arrived there with a wife,
yes,
Samira, and as you see, he is waving to the crowd, shaking hands, making his way to sit for this to start. We're going to be expecting him to start pretty soon. And we're already throwing out what to expect because we know, having monitored, that he's put out 68 promises, and we're saying that we're expecting that in the 2020. Our members who were part of the manifesto drafting committee who had worked with him. And remember that, and that's Kwabena Japan there. Kwabena Japan was the chair of their infrastructure and WASH committee, and he led that part of the manifesto drafting. So a lot of them had been before today. And so this is the first outing we've seen him in a week. Yeah. And presumably, they've now managed to look at this closely. They've dotted the I's and crossed the T's. That's him there coming out with the wife to the ground now. We're going to expect that this is going to be getting underway pretty shortly. And this is one of the things that we'll be asking a lot of questions about, and you see it on your screen. One of the things that we expect him to be talking about is this very controversial promise to pay chiefs, to give them allowances, right? And we've just been counting 348 chiefs we have in this country, and possibly could be more. But they have clarified that what it means is they're going to be paying divisional chiefs and queen mothers. It will exclude paramount chiefs. Paramount chiefs are already paid. They put it at 1,000 cedis. And I'm asking them, okay, so if you're paying 1,000 cedis already, how much are you going to be paying the divisional chiefs and the queen mothers? How much is that going to cost you? But again, is it realistic? Is it something you should even be doing in a time when the economy is struggling, right? They're going to be spending on chiefs. What for? They say they want to bring the chiefs into the governance architecture a bit more, and if you give them, pay them, then you can hold them and get them to participate a bit more and sort of compel them to contribute a bit more to the governance process. Well, that is the argument.
I mean, yes, it is something that would explore going into the future.
It is why they're doing it. So that's something that we'll look at. And then if you look at another thing that he said he will do, again, compensation will come into play. The reason why this is important is if you're paying chiefs, it's all going to add to the burden you already have, which is how much you're paying your employees on the government payroll already, because you're going to pay chiefs, right? And we know that this has been a big challenge for everybody. This 63.6 billion that we have been telling us we have to find a way to control your wage bill. Now you're going to add to that wage bill by bringing in more than 300 people who you can easily decide not to do, but you're deciding to do it anyway. That's why I brought it here. And then you also look at that budget in terms of how it compares to expense going to go. Should you be making promises that will add on to the government expenditure, or should you be reducing? And that's where you see a certain conflict in the policies they're proposing. So here you have a vice president and a part that raises questions about what is the consistency in rolling out that policy proposal when you say you want to reduce ministers. But then whilst you reduce the ministers, you're making savings there. Then you're increasing it by bringing in more chiefs from the other. Okay, presumably it's going to cost you less to take care of all the chiefs, but you need to do it in the first place.
To pay division.
And if you look at, free SHS is another thing. They say they want to improve. If you're improving, it could cost you more, not necessarily, because you can improve and reduce and decide for example, you're no longer going to pay boarding. Boarding will not be under free SHS. That's many will say can be an improvement. Yeah. Say I'm not going to pay for boarding.
Because the understanding is that, and I don't know where we got this from, we have come to some conclusion that free means take up everything. Everything. And we all know that means not everything that's taken up. But do you know we started this conversation? We picked the items that was originally on the item list for everybody going to school. Then the NDC said, we've taken about 6 to 7 of them, so the rest can be dealt with differently. The NPP says, no, we are looking at all the 14 or so. So far as an item on your bill, we are picking up this bill. Now, secondly, the other issues that came up was that why are we truly having a conversation about the amount we are paying in this sector? And Winston, you know what the response was? We have spent only 15 billion on free SHS. What's the big deal with you people? Is that's not a chunk of our money anyway? So we should look to anywhere else and not pretend that free SHS is the cause of our problems as a people. But what we fail to say is that 15 billion is still a cost to the nation.
Yeah.
Plus all the other education sector budget, it was still a big issue for us to deal with. And then delivery of even the 15 billion. How often were we releasing the money to the people? Remember, virtually every term, we had to be advocates and insist that schools have not gotten the monies because headmasters could not speak and nobody could depend on it or actually insist on it coming for us to be the ones giving out.
And you're sure there's Kennedy Japan also arriving at the grounds. The Vice President is already seated and this is about to start. But just before we go live to the Vice President to hear what he has to say, and we've already given you a sense of what to expect, this is their big ticket when it comes to the tax reforms, as Miracle said to me on PM Express. But some things that he said he will do. These 4 things. Emissions tax is something that he's already told us that he wants to scrap, right? The VAT on electricity, he never saw the light of day because of the controversy, but he's not going to attempt it. We see him there walking on stage with a wife, waving. And we're going to see him now speak to a teleprompter, which for me is interesting.
Oh, yeah. I don't recall the last time.
I don't recall. Yeah, exactly.
Again, there's also been some concerns about the Bamiyan delivery on a platform like that.
Yeah.
When he won the slots, people were not impressed with the thank you note that he gave that day. They feel that there are some hitches in the delivery of this sort. So perhaps this will be a very massive improvement.
Yeah.
That's if he has rehearsed enough, because teleprompters can also cause you troubles.
If you are not used to it.
Yes.
And I expect that his team would have prepped him with this particular. John Mahama has been using this, by the way.
Oh, John Mahama has perfected.
Has perfected it here. This will be. I stand to be corrected. This is the first time I'm seeing. We'll see him. Yes, see him use a teleprompter.
I have seen John Mahama closely with his teleprompter, and you won't even see it. It's such that you won't see it that he's using it, and so it depends on how they set it up. But I do not think that they wouldn't prepare him.
They would have prepared him.
They would have prepared him.
They've bought it, they've trained him to use it. We'll see how he performs with that. But this, for me, is the most curious one, right? Because he's going to scrap all these taxes. That e-levy is going to go, betting tax is going to go.
Oh, he will scrap betting tax.
Yes. He said.
Yeah, he talked about that in January. I have my own concept.
Yeah, he said.
I support it.
Yeah, he support it. Yeah, he said it's also scrap it. But I mean, it's similar to what JM is also proposing.
Yes,
when he said this in January, I think I've had that discussion with Raymond. I am saying that I don't have a problem with a progressive betting tax. But to wholesale,
I'm willing to even entertain that. Yeah.
Yes, progressive betting.
But the wholesale, you're not in favor of.
I'm not in favor of.
Yeah, and I see why. Because if you look at how much we're going to be losing if he does this, and this is the 2024 budget.
Yeah.
Doing a projection for the next 3 years into 2027 after 2025, and telling us that we're expecting to rake in the betting tax of 5.1 billion. So if you take that away, instantly you're losing 5.1 billion.
Yeah, this is for purposes of analysis.
Yeah, I get it.
Because we know what happened to e-levy. But
I get it. Even the e-levy, it's quite an overestimation of 8.27 billion.
E-levy is able to make more than $1 billion. So
last 2023, it was just 1.09 billion.
Yeah, so
it was less.
They can get there.
But they've done well this year. First half was 110 million cedis. And a projection that it will end the year over 2 billion, right, for 2024. So that is good. But I saw it and I'm like, well, this is overestimating what you can get in 3 years. But let's assume.
No, so you say e-levy is doing very well.
Well, this year, half year, they've done 810 million.
So by the end of the year, we get
and put it in context.
We will get 11 million jobs.
Why? There's a link between e-levy and jobs?
Oh, the former finance minister was very clear.
You like being sarcastic. You know,
you start.
But you started.
E-levy was going to do that. But, but you see, the betting tax. So let's use the figures. These are figures that are. I say that these guys are earning some money. You know, they're earning directly. They must pay something to the state. Just as when we earn money, for those who earn a lot of salary, a lot of money, they can go to the 25 and others. But for those who earn lower, they're around 17.5 and all of that. So let's do it progressively, okay? But wholesale, no betting tax, I'm not.
It's a challenge. I mean, the estimate tells you the story. E-levy itself. So the big question for me is, when you say you were going to be scrapping taxes, at a time when you need the taxes the most, is that a prudent thing to say? But again, if you reduce the taxes, does it improve productivity? Because some of the tax can be nuisance.
The theory can support a scrapping of e-levy, for instance. The theory can support that.
And the theory is?
See, the fact that today, if you say people are, you're taxing financial, you're taxing transfers, for instance, electronic transfers. So a lot of people are actually doing things which you may not see. Hitherto would have used these means of engaging in transactions. Today, we don't do them because we have to pay some money. Okay? If you scrap it, the people will now feel will now feel free to spend more. If they spend more, those persons that are actually buying for that, even though you've talked about the fact that it doesn't go there, the truth is that the online business that a lot of people do in this country, these online people, they do it through e-levy. They do it through
mobile money.
Mobile money. A lot of people.
Financial transactions.
A lot of people don't have merchant numbers. Okay? That in itself curtails that expenditure. I am saying that e-levy itself is a nuisance tax. It's a nuisance tax. So the theory supports its abolition. It's a nuisance tax. It does nothing. Why? How much is that giving us?
Where do you get, assuming this projection by the finance ministry is right, between 2025 and 2027, how do you make this? How do you fix the hole that you lose from here?
You can actually do that, again, you can actually do that with an amnesty on taxes I would explain. That amnesty is a bait.
So you get more people in?
You get more people in it. So, okay. And as I said, the theory was, if you take this out, it's a bait. The tax amnesty is a bait.
But whilst he's doing that, which is the point you're making here about the amnesty, which is
it's a big
thing.
I mean, today if I say Evans Mensah, bring your company. But you see, the amnesty, I don't know what form it's going to take. In the past, we've seen penalties being waived. If they waive the penalty, you pay the tax. You still pay the tax. So in the past, we would have said you're going to be paying penalties.
But that's one of the things we are expecting today. In the manifesto now, which we expect the detail.
Yeah.
When it says the tax amnesty, what exactly is it? What form will it take? The tax digitalization, I think you have a fair idea what that is because they've done a fair bit of work in that area too. And then this flat rate tax is something that those businesses have been calling for to make it simpler.
Just a couple of weeks ago, the Deputy Finance Minister, Alex Ampabin, was sitting where I'm sitting. And I was sitting where Winston is currently sitting. And I asked him the question about these taxes. His response is that the ministry that's advising government is now reviewing all the taxes. In fact, this digitalization process will finish by the first quarter of 2025. First, the hope is that there will be more people when they are done with the digitalization process. But for all the taxes, they are now reviewing them. So government is unclear in its mind as we speak what is to be removed, what is to be kept, and what is maintained. But he's sure that if there is a decision taken to remove any of them, it should be based on that review. We may possibly have Dr.
A bit more detail
repeating some of these things, which to me, and I get you, on the face of it, and from some analysis, it might even look like a nuisance tax. But when I compare what, after your massive review in 2023, you put in your medium-term revenue strategy, and that medium term was start from 2024 to 2027, there was no part of that particular deal you said you're going to scrap the e-levy. I hope you get what I'm trying to say. Moving it forward, if you are still going through that review, I am expecting that it's not just based on people don't like it and people have difficulties with it. So we are giving fantastic proposals. This review must be concluded to inform what should happen with that taxation structure.
Well, that timeline I give you is fascinating.
Yeah.
Because the 2024 manifesto you're about to hear, as we've said already, must give us details on that.
That's true.
So if that's a timeline, what the detail
how
will
are
get?
You going to come to
but
some definite policies?
But this is the thing, Raymond, and you would also agree that even when it comes to free SHS, at the time in the NPP, there were those who said don't start free SHS in 2017. But because the president insisted on starting in 2017, the NPP or the government had to start free SHS. So if the president insists on abolishing e-levy, for instance, he can abolish e-levy. And that's something that he can say, I want to abolish. Because today, we're talking about electronic transactions.
My difficulty is with what will be the justification for making government policy when your own people have not finished with a comprehensive review of it.
The most important thing would be what has been his own analysis of it.
Yeah.
Because this is the point. The man has told you that he was supposed to offer supplementary services, support services. So what's been his own analysis? What has he done and what does that tell you? Because today, I mean, we're talking about, going into electronic transactions all the time. The e-levy is a barrier to a lot of electronic transactions. Today, contrary to some of the things that we were told, you've seen people still sending money, okay, making even bank transfers, and are still paying for it.
Well, so that's one of the things that we're expecting to hear from Dr. Bawumia in terms of his own 2024 ideas that will crystallize in the manifesto that should be launched
and again, this manifesto is the party's manifesto.
The party's manifesto.
Dr. Bawumia may have extraordinary ideas going into the future. Unless he's able to bulldoze his way through, there will certainly be people on the table who say, relax. Even though you believe that this is so dear to you, the collective integrity and collective reputation of the party is on the line when it comes to these ones. So give and take would happen. And a bit of a tempering down of some of the things that perhaps we have heard in this time past would also come into play. Because that is how the party and of course, I mean, I've seen some of the members of the manifesto. They are not people you can just say, oh, swallow this hook, line, sinker, and let's just go and put it out there. So maybe the exact wording and the exact detail, or what will even be couched as the platforms for delivering the goals going into the future, will tell us whether or not some of the things you're even talking about today will still find expression in its fullest form in the final document.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, and the stage is set there. We're just waiting for this to get underway.
You see, because Bawumia has already spoken to us. Now, the difficulty the campaign, the manifesto team would have is to depart from things he said previously. Because
things he said?
As in his vision statement.
Okay.
Because I believe...
But I don't expect a departure.
No, because the basic document they would use will be his vision statement.
Because if they depart, we'll pick that up on
We'll pick that up. So, Raymond, they
pick
can't depart. They are going to go according to what the man said he was going to do in January. And it will be the things that you would see, you would hear them talk about.
Yeah, and which is this is what we've been telling you. Because we didn't create this. He himself put it out. 68 of them, he said he will do. And we're saying that we want to see the details in the manifesto document that is going to be launched. And that should start pretty shortly for us. And then, whilst we talk about tax, they themselves have said the tax reforms is their biggest proposal going into the 2024 elections. They want to improve this. They want to improve this tax to GDP ratio of 13.1% because it's the lowest. It's actually below the average, the African average of 16.5%. If we talk about the lower middle income countries, it's even way less. The question is, the proposals that they have put forward in terms of tax reform, would it take us even to the average of 16.5%? The Africa average? Would it take us there?
I mean, if you look at the budget documents, they seem to suggest that over the medium term.
So tax amnesty. You expect that will draw in more people.
Yeah.
So that you expect all things being equal.
The medium term.
All things being equal. It should increase a bit.
The reason why I was actually
digitalization of the tax infrastructure should too.
Was that the medium term revenue framework strategy actually captures some of the things that Dr. Bawumia says is going to abolish. And it is some of these things that would lead us to getting to the 18% that we're talking about. So we have to see now what it is that he's going to introduce that can get us there.
Yeah, but he said it already. He's told you already that he's going to do tax reform.
But
these ones have put numbers. They've put numbers to it.
He told you already that this is what the things he's going to do. Tax amnesty, tax utilization. The president himself has arrived, by the way.
Put numbers to it.
Just a second for those watching. The president himself has arrived. We were asking earlier whether he was going to be there. Yeah. He is there now. I think he's the only reason why it hasn't started yet. He has arrived now, and he's taken his seat. So we should be getting underway pretty shortly in the next few seconds. Yes?
Except that maybe I'm quoting specifically what the medium-term revenue strategy says about e-levy. It said, redesign the electronic transfer levy for enhanced revenue mobilization and administrative efficiency.
Definitely no scrap.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that if you look at the budget, they've put numbers to it. Okay? And these numbers would help. I mean, if I open the budget, I can share those numbers with you. So all these things that you've been, Bawumia is promising, He's not put numbers to it.
Well, you expect numbers in the manifesto?
No, I don't expect numbers.
Okay.
But subsequently, you must provide the numbers.
Yeah.
I don't expect numbers in the manifesto. But after the manifesto has been presented,
Oh, yes. Especially when you're in government.
you must
you don't have that excuse at all.
You must come and tell us
Yeah.
the numbers. Because like I stated, going forward, it is not going to be business as usual. It's not going to be, we will do this and we will have
Fanciful hopes.
No. It is why we are where we are today. So tell us how much this is going to cost us, these promises, how much is going to impact the fiscals. Then we'll determine. All of us would have the debate. Is it feasible? Is it not? He's talked about you will not go beyond 105%, of the previous year's revenue by way of expenditure. It means that for him, he's not going by the 5% of GDP, even less. Let him come and provide the numbers.
So we'll see. It's about to start. The moment of truth is almost here. And this is a big one, though, and here too, we have to ask him questions. He says he's going to have, in terms of his ministers and deputies, not more than 50. My question to him is, which ministries are you going to sacrifice and which ministries will you maintain? You have to tell us.
Oh, it's very easy to do that. I mean, frankly, I would not care about how he decides to arrange the ministries. But I am happy that anybody is of the opinion we should reduce ministries and ministers in the Republic.
Yeah, of course. I get you. But if
I get your detail,
but if in the reconstruction of the numbers, you take away, for example, Ministry of Water Resources, Works and Housing.
Yeah, but you don't. Right? With respect, you don't.
There's a huge debate around which ministries would you keep, and that's why governments have struggled. I need to see that. I need to see the thinking that goes into your 50.
If government want to prioritize what they call it, a sector or a project, they don't necessarily need a ministry to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is how government have conceptualized the idea that if you want to prioritize, have a ministry for it.
So,
but I agree with you that that's not what you need to do.
Mensah, do you need a minister for chieftaincy affairs?
Well, you don't.
You don't.
Absolutely don't, yes.
You don't need a minister.
Even there's an argument about whether you need an information ministry.
I mean, and there's minister not only for chieftaincy, but for religious affairs too.
Chieftaincy and religious affairs.
Wow.
You can only have it.
Do you need a minister for information?
I don't think you do. I don't think you do. You can have a government spokesperson and have the person
because every ministry has its PRO.
Exactly. So you can have somebody at the top.
A minister that would organize.
Do you need a minister
meet the press
for fisheries?
Well, you don't, because put it under agriculture, generally. I mean, so we're just now about to start, and so a few questions that I'll be asking, things that we expect to see, and things that we expect him to flesh out a bit more in the manifesto. And then if you look basically at the numbers in terms of the 50 that he says he want to do no more, if he does that, he's going to save us some 12.7 in terms of the money, right? The current ministers compared to, what he's possibly proposing. Some 12.7 million annually, which is not bad. I mean,
this is a very conservative.
Very conservative, of course. This is just salary. This is just salary.
No, but it's the principle.
It's the principle, yeah.
The government is willing to cut back. That means that's the most important part.
The principle. I mean, that you see him there in your shot there, attempting to.
And I just remembered, you don't need sanitation and water resources. You should go back to works, housing, and water resources.
Well, that's what both parties are proposing now. Yeah. They will keep water and sanitation together and then put it under one ministry, but not by itself.
As a Minister of Sanitation and Water Resources, you don't need a ministry in charge of sanitation, because you only took sanitation away from the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development and said you've created a new ministry because your thinking was that Ghana should be the cleanest city in Africa.
Which hasn't been delivered, really.
Anyway, I think we can go and...
So, as you see there, just about starting, everybody else is set. The room is charged as, people enjoy themselves ahead of the big event itself. We're going to be looking forward to the details as we've just laid out for you. This is not one for dancing and drumming. It's one for hard analysis. This will make or make the party after today true. This is where, at least for those who pay attention to manifestos, for those who pay attention to manifestos, they will be looking to take and see whether it addresses your needs, whether you've thought through carefully how to address our collective challenges. But for the vast majority of us, will this matter? It's a question that we'll come and answer once we finish hearing them. Let's go.